Mark 2, let's go. Okay, so Mark 2, here we go. Let's launch straight in. I hope you can see it, read along with it. If you can't, then pause the video now, get it open, get it on your app, get it on your screen, and then join in. Okay, verse 1. A few days later, when Jesus again entered Capernaum, the people heard that he had come home. They gathered in such large numbers that there was no room left, not even outside the door, and he preached the word to them. Some men came, bringing to him a paralyzed man, carried by 4 of them. Since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus by digging through it, and then lowered the mat the man was lying on. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now some of the teachers of the law were sitting there thinking to themselves, "Why does this fellow talk like that? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" Immediately Jesus knew in his spirit that this is what they were thinking in their hearts. And he said to them, "Why are you thinking these things? Which is easier, to say to this paralyzed man, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up, take your mat and walk'? But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." So he said to the man, "I tell you, get up, take your mat and go home." He got up, took his mat, and walked out in full view of them all. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." There's quite a lot of amazing stuff going on in these verses, but a quick overview is that Jesus has come to the town of Capernaum, and he is preaching. So many people are crowding in around him, trying to get to the house where he's speaking in, that you can't get near it. And these men bring a friend of theirs who is paralyzed. His legs don't work, he can't walk, so that Jesus might heal him. Because they can't get near Jesus, they go up the side of the house. Now houses in those days were often flat roofed, steps going to the top, so you could use the roof. And they dig through the material on the roof to make a hole, and they lower the man. This would have taken a lot of effort. This also would have, the risk of really upsetting the owners of the house. They might have had to pay for the damage, but they did not care, because getting the man to Jesus was the most important thing. And Jesus sees this, and he says, when he saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." He doesn't say, "Be healed." He doesn't say, legs work or get up. He forgives his sins, which seems like a very odd thing to do. And the leaders of the Jewish culture there, the religious leaders, they're thinking, no way, only God can do that. You're not allowed to do that. But Jesus knows this. And so he challenges them and says, do you know what? I am God. I have the authority to do this. I could tell the man to be healed. I could tell him his sins are forgiven. It's the same thing either way. And that's a very interesting thing, because you can often equate the idea of healing with forgiveness as well, with forgiveness of sins. At this time there was a physical healing. There's not always a physical healing in today's age. I've seen many people come to know God, be forgiven by God, but there's still physical issues. There's still healing is still wanted. But Jesus is kind of equating the two at this point and saying that healing and forgiveness really go hand in hand. Jesus knows the cross is coming. He knows the forgiveness of sins paid for by him is going to happen. And also on that day, it's where full healing is released for all people. We just may not see full, complete physical healing this side of heaven. But forgiveness and healing, to Jesus, they're locked in the same thing. And by pointing out that only God can do it, he's showing people, well, do you know who I am? I'm God. This is what we're here to do. And the result of all this is not everyone celebrating the man of Jesus, but actually it says in verse 12 that this amazed everyone. They praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." Verse 13. Once again Jesus went out beside the lake. A large crowd came to him, and he began to teach them. As he walked along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," Jesus told him, and Levi got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. When the teachers of the law, who were the Pharisees, saw him eating with the sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said to them, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. This is this amazing picture of Jesus calling another disciple, calling a tax collector, not an educated fisherman this time, but an educated man who dealt with money, but probably and often was it part of a world which was unlawful, which took money from the Jewish people to give to the Romans, and it double dipped, took extra for themselves. Whether Levi did that or not, we don't know, but we do know that he would not have been a liked man. He would have been part of a crowd of people who were seen as described as sinners and outcasts. And when the religious leaders, the Pharisees, see Jesus spending time with these people, they are just, what are you doing, Jesus? This is not the way a rabbi should be, not the way a teacher of Jewish law should be. And Jesus has this amazing answer. He says, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Jesus saying, I've come for those who need to understand that they need God. I've not come for those who think they've got it sorted, who follow God. And he said, I need to come and show those who have moved away from God, who don't even recognise God anymore by the lifestyle they live, that things have got to change. That I've come to show them what it means to turn away from the bad and turn back to God and receive forgiveness. And so he spends time with his people. He also doesn't judge them in the way that many people did. He doesn't look at them and see it as scum, outcast. He sees people who need God's forgiveness, who need God's love. And this is a theme that reoccurs throughout the gospel. And it's just an amazing way to start thinking about how do we react in our world. Do we label people that we shouldn't go near, we shouldn't spend time with? Or do we need to understand that God's love is for all and that God's message is for all people? Carrying on, verse 18. Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting. Some people came and asked Jesus, how is it that John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees are fasting, but yours are not? Jesus answered, how can the guests of the bridegroom fast while he is with them? They cannot, so long as they have him with them. But the time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and on that day they will fast. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. Otherwise the new piece will pull away from the old, making the tear worse. And no one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise the wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins. Jesus is being challenged again now, but this time it's about the Jewish traditions. Yeah, oh, you should be fasting, you should not be eating, you should be putting that time before God. And Jesus is saying there will be a time for that, but you do that to seek after God, to help you, to pray, to help listen to God, to help show God that you are devoted. But right now, God is here. God is here in me, says Jesus. God is the bridegroom. One of the most important people at the wedding is here. So why are all the people who would be waiting for me going to be fasting when I'm here? They're going to celebrate with me. They're going to listen to things I have to say. You don't take an old tradition and try and force something new into it. You don't take an old piece of clothing and try and put a new patch on it, because the old clothing has been stretched out and adjusted and it's ready for any washing. The new patch needs to go through that process, so it's going to rip and shrink and pull away. If you put new wine in old wineskins, you might burst the old wineskins. Jesus saying, I'm new wine. This is new teaching. We can't force this into old traditions. He's not saying that fasting is wrong, but he's saying that time will come for it, and sticking religiously to the way you do things is not right when there's a whole new message coming from Jesus. Moving on in verse 23. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick up some new heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath? He answered, have you ever read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. And he also gave some to his companions. Then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. This is continuing this theme again. He's being challenged again on a tradition. The Sabbath is something which is correct and right to keep. The Sabbath is part of the Ten Commandments. It was about when God rested on the seventh day of creation, putting a day aside for God to be holy. For the Jewish tradition, that began sunset on Friday, right through Saturday until sunset on Saturday. They would not work. They would not do anything which would be considered as work. That even meant cooking, preparing meals, anything like that at all. They would get themselves ready. They would have a complete day of rest and focus on God. And then at sunset on Saturday, they would pick up. They would probably prepare a meal and they would carry on. Today, Sabbath might mean Sunday. It might be the day that you go to church or you concentrate. For people like me, who Sunday really is a work day, although it's great I get to worship God and focus on God as part of my work, I try and put another day aside, maybe Saturday or Monday, as a day that I can try and have rest. But it doesn't mean that you do nothing. And Jesus being challenged by the leaders saying, your disciples, they're picking grain, that's work. And Jesus says, even David, one of your great kings from your history, went into the temple on the day of Sabbath and ate the food only meant for the priests. Because do you know what? Men have got to eat. We've got a role here. We're going out to spread the message of God. And I expect my disciples to be able to eat. God expects them to be able to eat. He does not class that as not putting me first. They have put me first because they have followed me. They have put down everything and they have given it up to follow me. And if that means that on a Sabbath day, as we go to preach and tell the message of God, they need to get some food in order to eat, then that is not wrong. And it's about trying to move away from this, you must do things this way. This is our traditions. And it's about the passage before when we look at what it meant for the new and old wineskins. Jesus is trying to show that there is a new way now to hear from God. There is a new message, a new gospel, a new testament, as we now call it. And that some of the old ways are just a bit outdated. I think we see that a lot, don't we, in today's culture. It doesn't mean that everything that went on before is wrong and that we completely abandon, but we know where we've been. We understand the journey, and sometimes things have to develop. New things have to happen in a way that we show Christianity to the world. Online Bible studies is a classic example of how things are starting to develop and change. The message is the same. God is the same. Just how we do our traditions and our practical things have got to develop. Okay guys, so I hope that was a little bit useful. Don't forget you can pick one of these books up from me. It gives you a little bit more info and helps you through. So yeah, do get in the comments, do write your messages, ask your questions. It only takes one of you to do that and it will start a little landslide of people following on. We really do want to make this a discussion. I'd love to know what you think. What have I missed out? What have I answered? What do you want to know about? What's confusing? What really stood out to you? What really kind of made an impact on you? Do share it. It's such an amazing thing to do and it will encourage others to do the same. Awesome. So I'll see you guys soon and keep an eye out for more videos. Bye.